Oh, really?
We have Allison, Snowden, and David Fine. How did you guys get into animation, first of all?
Gosh, well, we've been making films together for a long, long time. And both of us worked independently we were interested in filmmaking principally, but I think it's fair to say that animation was a part of that because you could just do it. You could cut stuff out or draw things and make a film without having to, do a whole big live action thing. But we really were interested in filmmaking generally. Is that the case?
Yeah. I mean, I went to art school and always focused on art and writing, really. David, in his boyhood, was making short little films, weren't you?
Yeah, I did a lot of, Super 8 and 16 millimeter films as a student, as a teenager. And I worked at the National Film Board in Canada back in the 70s. Came to film school in England where I met Allison. We were both studying in live action at the film school, but because we had a background in animation, we always gravitated towards the animation department, and somehow we just connected with the other animation students more than anyone else. Our classmates included Nick Park and other really good filmmakers that inspired us. At film school, Allison made a film called Second Class Mail, and I worked on that with her, and that had won some awards and stuff. And
that kind of gave us our first breaks, and we were able to make a film with the National Film Board based on that film called George and Rosemary, because that was also about elderly folks and romance.
I remember liking The Big Snit, which is, that one.
The Big Snit is good that you bring that up because, that was a film that we regard very highly. And we saw that when we were making George and Rosemary, and we sort of slapped our forehead and went, "Oh my God, that's so great! This is the kind of." We wanted to give up.
Yeah.
Well, that's the film we wish we'd made. So
but we were inspired by the naturalism and the dialogue and the couple interacting, and then we made a film about a couple interacting. So, that kind of thing, and we feel very privileged to work amongst a lot of really talented filmmakers because Richard Condy's a friend. As I said, we went to film school with Nick Park and Mark Baker and many other people and other NFB filmmakers and other independent filmmakers whose work we admire so much and inspires us and makes us do better.
And then, we did some, we've done development work on various things. We did some development for Lily Tomlin at one point. She wanted to make a TV series, and she saw, did she see George and Rosemary, wasn't it, at a festival? And then that took us back to England, and that's when, shortly after that's when we got the commission to make Bob's Birthday.
Now, that's the one that you got your first Oscar with, right?
Yes.
Well, Bob's Birthday was a result of having birthdays that we'd been quite nervous to try and organise for each other that had gone wrong. None of them were what happened at Bob's Birthday, but it inspired us to think how stressful it is to organise a birthday for a spouse. You end up getting kind of angry at them.
Now remember, no one should come out until I give the signal.
What's the signal?
Oh, when I shout, surprise, you all leap out. And try not to spill your drinks on the carpet.
Because it's stressful trying to make this big surprise and the best day of their lives and everything. So that inspired that. And then what if that all goes wrong? And then we kind of worked backwards and thought, well, he's got to be depressed. He must be, what if he's having a midlife crisis? So that puts more pressure on this birthday and also puts him in a bad mood to not having a good time. And then we researched and found dentists have the highest suicide rate of all professionals, as quote in the film. So we kind of worked backwards to enrich it, because we thought it can't just be, I think the first idea was this guy comes down with his pants off, and we thought, oh, that would be just like a British farce. You know, it would still just be a little bit of a fun, and it might be really bad, like, you know, we just do it as a farce. So we had to give it some substance. So we tried to enrich it with all these other things.
Do my pink elephant routine?
Well, I don't like it now.
Oh, well, I'm very sorry. Yeah, well, maybe you should go out and find yourself a new husband. You know, one of those sporty types who jogs and plays squash all the time, yeah? Or someone exciting and sophisticated who would take you to the theatre or a disco. Who's that beady-eyed fellow at your office? Or what about, what's his name? Brian. I'm sure Barbara wouldn't mind. Virtue's a bit of a wild card herself. She's so dowdy. You'd never
The
guess.
Green Spoons are our best friends. You were just saying that the other day.
No, I was not. Anyway, you like them even less than I do. Every time we see them, you sit up all night talking about how boring they are.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's not your fault. They are boring.
And, you know, our earlier work, we were just kind of trying to come up with clever ideas or things we thought would work. But I think with Bob's Birthday, it was the first thing we did that was really drawn and inspired from personal experiences, and saying stupid stuff that happens to us we can exploit and make stories about. And we made a series based on Bob's Birthday after that, Bob and Margaret.
Right.
And in that case, you know, everything we wrote about was largely inspired by our you know, terrible things or stupid stuff that happened to us. We got our house robbed, and we thought, that's a funny thing to make a story about. So there's a Bob and Margaret episode about them having their house robbed. And
Hey, Boney, should we bother with this telly? It's so old.
I don't know. Looks like it's rented.
I really cannot understand why anyone would rent a TV. They probably paid for this thing 10 times over.
Well, yeah, but on the other hand, you get all the repairs done for free, so there's peace of mind, I suppose. And some people can't afford a big outlay like that all at once.
No, that's bonkers. You can buy a TV on hire purchase with an extended warranty. The monthly payments would be the same as a rental. Only after 3 years you'd own the bloody thing.
Well, look, there's a whole business based around rentals. People must need the service or it wouldn't exist.
They make people need the service. They put fears in their heads about repair bills and obsolescence. It's the biggest con, I tell you. This is attractive, isn't it?
How's it pour?
Nice.
so that was a turning point, really, with our creative career, was figuring out that we could make very personal, make fun of ourselves and
Right.
people we knew.
Yeah.
Well, so from that, and you know, it's an exaggeration or it's different than the real thing, but it at least inspires storylines like either one of them's a fear of flying, it's a travel one and everything. And we could make notes, like if something happened. We used to play badminton with friends, and that could get quite competitive. And we just thought, and there were people who were always knocking each other, over almost because it was so competitive. And so I got an idea from that, which sounded really lame on paper. I want to make one episode about badminton, but then you add the drama to it, and the idea is it's something ordinary that then goes haywire.
You were supposed to be playing forward.
I was.
Mine! Ooh.
Oh, sorry. Are you all right, Ken?
You're hogging the court. I haven't played a single shot.
Well, you should have called it.
I did.
Woo! Woohoo! We're on a roll. Ken. Are you all right?
Ken!
Stand aside. I'm a doctor.
No, you're not. You're a dentist.
Well, he might have a broken tooth.
With our characters, when we actually animate them, because one of the things is the story, and then when you actually get the characters, you want to put in, little movements and everything that you've observed in people, or in people close to you. So it's original. You're not just drawing off other films to say, oh, that's how someone adjusts their glasses or whatever. You think, oh, that's something I've seen, and I like those quirks.
Yeah, there is the kind of less is more thing too, because it can be very simple. But I always like to use the word truth. I feel like if you make stories or films that have a truth, then people connect with it and go, I believe that. I feel for that character. It wants to have an emotional truth, and if it's funny, that's great because people like comedy. But it's the emotional truth that touches people and makes them connected. And then after that, if the walk cycle's a bit ropey, people don't really care as much.
You did something with Nickelodeon after that, right?
We made a kids show called Ricky Sprocket, Showbiz Boy.
And that was more about a kid that's a Hollywood kid that kind of...
A very ugly
ugly kid.
Star. Yeah, it was supposed to be ironic, right. Usually like Justin Bieber looking, what you'd expect to have a cute looking kid, but he was very ugly. So we thought that was funny.
Right.
The ugliest kid in the world is the biggest.
But he doesn't realize it, He's not feeling good about himself. It's really positive.
So now a lot of time went by between that and where you are now. So how did this film come about? And it's also, this is your first film with, you had Bob's birthday? I think you had the 2 dogs in that.
Yes, which was based on real life because David's father had 2 big dogs that we visit. They'd always be joined by this ball because neither of them would give it up. They were just so determined. So they'd look stupid. They'd sleep like that, or standing around like that. They just look so because they're big dogs, so it just looks ridiculous.
But apart from that,
to this deep, mostly deflated ball.
But apart from that, you're saying that this is our first foray into animal animation.
Yeah, I mean, how did this come about? The new one called Animal Behavior.
I think that the story obviously suited them being animals for one thing. Another thing is because it's been 25 years or something like that since we designed our last film, and I really wanted to do something different with that a little bit. So making them animals allowed it not to look like our sort of cliche human design so much, and maybe help me break out of that mold a bit. So I enjoyed it from that point of view.
It's not easy when you're a single parent. I've placed ads, I've used dating sites, but I have to say I've got 1,000 kids, and that can be a real turnoff for some. Look, it's obvious. Why doesn't she just stop being such a parasite and give the guy a break? No, I can't live without Michael.
Well, perhaps spending some time apart isn't such a bad idea. It might allow you to grow emotionally.
No! I hate being on my own. I have panic attacks.
Right. It's okay. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. See? You're fine.
This is better. I feel safe in here.
Yeah, you're safe.
So that's, yeah.
Yeah, so we, that's what inspired us to use the animals for it as analogous for human condition, because all the animals we chose have issues that could be found in human behavior.
It's okay, Jeffrey.
It's okay?
No, Victor, it's not okay, but remember, Jeffrey was just a child, and he was faced with some very difficult choices.
Look, I don't eat worms, but I can relate to Jeffrey's
there's something
feelings.
you don't eat. Amazing.
No, not at all. Todd, in fact, is a recovering chocoholic, and he's making excellent progress.
I haven't touched a truffle in over a month.
Now, this is interesting because you said 25 years have gone by, so, what did you use to make the film or the look of the film?
Well, we did use TV paint, and the reason is because we were keen to have the film feel like a personal film and not look like a digital film or like a lot of TV series, but to have a kind of handmade quality, but to avail ourselves of today's technology. Because like you were saying, the last film we made was cells and cell paint, and we never really enjoyed that process because it's so fraught with issues, cell layers, shadows, Newton rings, paint, bubbling up, ink falling off. I remember our friend Mark Baker once said that the stupid thing about cells is that it's a product that's designed to resist things sticking to it. And, this is what we use. So we were really keen to go digital. And because we've been doing TV series, all of our work tended to be in creation and directing and writing and not actually putting, pen to paper and using new technology. So one of the inspirations was that it would be really fun to make a film using software and have that experience. We thought it would be so much more efficient and easier. And of course, it in many ways it was, but it wasn't any quicker at all, which shocked us because we thought it would be. But I think when it's digital, you can, you have the luxury of opening that scene over and over and tweaking it and fixing it and adjusting it. Whereas with traditional animation, you just do it and that's it. Once it's done, goes to trace and paint, and you don't tweak it as much.
So now with this film, did you have a crew of people, like a head animator, or was that you, or how did that work?
Yeah, that was us. And then we got a crew to do the painting.
We hired a couple of people that did some animation on it. There was our friend Janet Perlman did a little bit of animation on it, and another animator in Vancouver named Mario Richards did some. We wanted to push the ape to be more aggressive than we felt that we could achieve as effectively. So we looked for someone who could bring that to it.
Yeah, we needed it to go to 11, when he got really angry. Like, we did our best.
I think
we need some of that squash and strainer, which we never use because we're not traditionally trained animators, so we don't use a lot of that. But we definitely needed it when he was like bursting open the bag.
We tend to go to about 8.5
at the most.
Yeah.
And even then, that's like we overheat.
How do you feel after you guys finish a project like this?
Well, it's a huge sense of relief.
Yeah.
But you're also a bit drained, aren't you? You think it's going to be amazing. You'll be so happy. But because it's been a long process, it's more like, you feel exhausted with it all.
But it is really nice, when you've finished a film, to get it to festivals, to see it with an audience, to get feedback, to hear people laugh. Because ultimately you're doing all that so that it'll connect with an audience and hopefully people will like it. And so, we've really enjoyed going to festivals. It was at TIFF in Toronto and VIFF in Vancouver.
Is there any advice you can give students of animation?
Yeah, it's like we were talking before, and something that we often say is, yes, study technique but make sure you come up with a film that you can complete that has some truth to it that people will connect with and say, I get that story, that means something to me. Perhaps if it's funny or just emotional, has some emotion, but it's something that you can complete and enter into festivals and get out there so that people see it, because that really, you get to meet people this way. And if you are overly ambitious and make something that is unfinished but is technically proficient, you don't stand out as much. So be ambitious, but be realistic so that you can complete something and do work that is from your heart and has a truth so that it connects with people. We were just talking recently. I did an interview on stage with Nick Park at the Spark Animation Festival in Vancouver here, and he was a guest. And I because we've known him for so many years, they asked me to interview him. So I did this interview with him on stage. And one of the things that came up was that neither he nor us have had any formal animation training. We just kind of picked it up and looked at stuff and got better over time by trying things. So learning the technique is absolutely, for sure, important, but it's more important to learn how to be a filmmaker and how to tell stories if you want to be a filmmaker.
Well, there you have it. That was Allison Snowden and David Fine of SnowdenFine Animation. And they're a married couple up in Vancouver, Canada. You can find out more about them on my Animateducated webpage if you go to animatededucated.blogspot.com.